My name is Jennifer Murray, and I am a 38-year-old single mom with stage 4 melanoma. I'm from Texas. My first symptoms were in 2019, and the only thing I really had going on with me was I was starting to have night sweats. I thought maybe I was premenopausal or something, but it did not turn out to be that way. And the only real thing that alerted me to my cancer was I was laying in bed one day and I felt like a little sting and I thought it was a bug bite. And I live in Texas, so I thought maybe there was an ant on my back. So I lifted up and I felt like a little lump. And my family has a history of having benign tumors all over their bodies, mainly lipomas. And I went to the doctor and he said, "Yeah, it's probably a lipoma, but I told him to take it out. Can you please take it out?" I had really good insurance at that time, and I was like, I don't really want to think about it. So, can you take it out so I'm not sitting here thinking I have something bad in my body? And he said, yeah. And that's how we discovered it was cancer. Cancer did not cross my mind. Even when the plastic surgeon was taking out the tumor, he mentioned, "Hey, do you have a family history of endometriosis?" And I was like, "No, I don't." And he said, "Well, this looks like a melanoma," as he was cutting me open. And it did not ring a bell that I've never had melanoma in my family that I knew of. And it just was never crossing my mind that maybe I would have melanoma. And he takes it out and he says, "Again, this kind of looks like melanoma, but we're going to send it off to pathology." And cancer did not cross my mind because I don't really have a family history with cancer and nor melanoma at all. I actually didn't even know what melanoma really was at all until I went home and checked on it and, did my little WebMD search. So I was very naive to melanoma. Matter of fact, when I went to MD Anderson, the first thing that they said when they came in was, "You're too dark. We need to make sure that you have melanoma because you're too dark to have melanoma." And it's a very rare melanoma I had. It was a malignant blue nevus. So it's a blue little mark in your body. It can be a mole on top, but mine was actually underneath the skin. I would have never known that I had this. Like, that's what I say. That this was my story that I was supposed to have, and it developed into a tumor. They don't know if it's UV related or not, but I know it's hard to see. But I am mixed with Mexican and white, and prior to cancer diagnosis, I never thought about melanoma. I was dark. I was very dark. I never thought about skin cancer. It just did not run in my family. Now I am a proponent to making sure everybody goes get checked. It was a little after Christmas, and he calls me on the phone. It was probably 9 o'clock at night, to be honest. And he said, I was calling you to let you know I did get the biopsy back and it is melanoma. I still didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. I didn't know the seriousness of melanoma at all. And he told me to, what his next steps would be go to see an oncologist. I didn't even know what an oncologist was. And he referred me to somebody at my local branch of Texas Oncology, and that's where I started. I had a mental breakdown after searching the internet and finding out what it meant to have stage 3 or 4 melanoma. At this point, it was a tumor. There were multiple tumors after looking on the ultrasound. So, from what I could collect, I at least had stage 3 melanoma. I could not process this at all. When I saw these statistics for melanoma at that time, which was not updated with the new immunotherapy statistics, I thought, I'm a goner. I'm dead. And I think I spent like a whole week crying in bed every opportunity I could. I worked full time, so I had to go to work, but I was really silent. And I cried whenever I had the opportunity to. Not where my children were, I didn't cry. But in the shower, in the bed, in the car, I spent a lot of time in tears. My initial treatment plan came from MD Anderson. I actually went and got a second opinion at MD Anderson. I lived in Austin at the time, So I drove to Houston and I saw a very prominent doctor who is still my doctor to this day, to treat me for stage 4. And he gave me a treatment plan of getting surgery. So we took 8 inches out of my back, and there were 3 tumors. There weren't just 2 at this point. So they were growing side by side. One of them was ulcerated at that point, within a few months. So it was like popping open. I mean, it was very tiny, but it was still ulcerated. So we got the surgery, and then he recommended 20 rounds of radiation immediately. So I went home and asked my doctor to hook me up with radiation, 20 rounds, and he said, we'll do whatever the MD Anderson doctor says to do. So he did that, and then they said to start on adjuvant immunotherapy. And he had me choose, and I chose Keytruda. So I was on Keytruda for 2.5 years after that. My advice to people when they get diagnosed is immediately go find a specialist in your cancer. I'm sure the general oncologists are great, but the specialists, they know the up-to-date data. I think they have conferences, a conference every single year where they give the most recent data. And I would not encourage anyone to just go see a general oncologist. And if you are by a cancer treatment center that's renowned, go there first. Go there first. I attribute me living this long to seeing my MD Anderson doctor first and getting his first opinion. Because my first oncologist from Texas Oncology just recommended immunotherapy at that time. With the radiation, I did not realize I was supposed to be taking Aquaphor. Nobody told me. So it wasn't until the last 2 sessions that I used Aquaphor, and I turned out like a zombie, burnt to a crisp. I was just peeling like an eggshell. It was awful. I looked awful. I wish somebody would have told me to use something on my skin, and they didn't. I don't know where that slip up was, but my skin looks okay now today, a few years later. So it was okay. And it wasn't as painful as it looked. It was for just a little bit, but ultimately it was okay to get through. And it didn't make me fatigued either. With the Keytruda, I did not, besides fatigue. And I did not have heavy fatigue, but I was tired all the time. My body is fighting something. Other than that, I really didn't have any side effects taking the first adjuvant immunotherapy. So it was almost 5 years down the road. I almost made it to my 5-year mark, and we had a routine PET scan, and they found an uptake in my liver. I knew it would go there. My genetic mutations are very similar to uveal melanoma, even though it's a cutaneous melanoma. So I knew if something was going to pop up, it'd be in my liver. My doctor at the time didn't think that way, and I don't fault him. I do have cutaneous melanoma, and, he was doing the best that he could. He was really observing me. So we found that uptake, and then I went to get an MRI, and it turned out I had multiple tiny lesions in my liver. So that's when we started on the dual immunotherapy, Opdivo and Yervoy. But over time, you can see the progression. And now we have switched to Opdualag at MD Anderson. And that is what I'm on right now. That is going great, considering I actually had hepatitis on the Opdivo and Yervoy with no symptoms. I had no symptoms. I had no idea that I had such a major reaction in my liver. But I think that did help my body recognize the tumors in my liver. So I am at least grateful for that. It didn't cure me, but it did slow down progression. On Opdualag, I don't really have any symptoms. We may have something going on that may or may not be progression at this time, but we don't know because it's only been 2 weeks since the first infusion, and I've had pseudo progression before. So I say it's going well. I have no other side effects, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't get through these moments. I let it process. I have my mental breakdowns. I have found that watching, this might be odd, but watching near death experiences, I spent hours watching these videos, and it kind of calmed me down. And then I'm always reminded every time I go to MD Anderson that children are also dealing with this. I'm not special. This is my story that was given to me. And this is just how it is. And I've accepted that. And that is the only way that I can get through it. I've tried a lot with a lot of toxic positivity, and that just does not work for me. It doesn't work for my genetic mutations. It's not something that's going to be cured easily, and I continuously hope that I get a miracle. But I allow myself to process it, and that's what I would recommend for everybody else too. To accept what's going on and just hope for the best. I was very adamant on getting biomarkers and my tumor mutations done. They didn't really find anything that would really hint that I would get cancer, but the mutations that are in my tumor are very different from all the melanomas out there. And it turned me into a research bunny. Matter of fact, I have a nickname called Research Jen, and my friends know me for researching so adamantly. And I've had so many 5 years to do this now. So it's what I do daily. And it's very important to have some sort of control, and that's the control that I can have is the knowledge and the current information that's out there. And that also kind of calms me down when I'm having like breaking points, because usually when we get upset, it's because it's the unknown. It's the fear of the unknown. So as long as you kind of know what's going on and know what the probabilities are and kind of have some control and plan ahead, it makes things a whole lot better. I would tell people to use as much money from that insurance as possible. So if they will allow you to get those biomarkers tested, do it immediately. Get your genetic testing done immediately, your tumor mutations done immediately, get that biopsy, get everything done so you have everything in front of you when you're trying to figure out a plan. And you really have to self-advocate to do that, because depending on your oncologist, that's not going to be at the top of their list. I have friends in my melanoma groups who have already started therapy and have not had their mutations tested when they're easily able to be tested. So I always encourage people, please get all the information that you can about yourself, about your family, about your mutations, and put that all in front of you so you know what's going on and your oncologist knows what's going on. It is important for you to be at the forefront of your cancer treatment. Not all oncologists are the same. Not all oncology offices are the same. They don't have the same ideas. They don't have the same vibe, the same setup. And there's been a lot of times where I practically had to stalk my oncologist's office to get an answer. And self-advocacy is the only way you're going to be able to put yourself at the forefront of your own treatment. I don't recommend anyone putting themselves in the passenger seat and just letting the oncologist make all the choices. There are so many opportunities out there for you to find clinical trials. Other hospitals have other opportunities for you. Other doctors have other ideas. If you don't feel like something's right, go out and advocate for yourself. This is actually your treatment. This isn't the oncologist's treatment. This is your life, your path. If you don't feel comfortable with whatever they've chosen, you are free to go to another hospital. You're making the payments. So it's really important for people to remember that the oncologist is on your team for your path. Being a single parent while having stage 4 cancer has been the most difficult thing I've ever done. I have to go to work every day when I really just want to spend time with my children. There are no resources for us. I used almost all of my savings the first go around to get, supportive help, make sure my nutrition was right. I had just started learning about the financial aspects of being an adult, I learned it way too late. A few things happened later on in life where I ended up using the rest of my savings. So I really don't have anything, and it makes me feel so sad that if I were to go, that my children are not going to have anything but a very small 401k that I have from my recent job. And that's really tough. And there's nowhere I can turn to. There's no support for me whenever I'm feeling sick. I do have some support from my job, but ultimately, like, disability doesn't pay enough. So I have to continue working. I think disability only covers rent, and rent is a third of my bills. There's no support. Like, I cannot emphasize this enough. I'm not the only single parent who has cancer. Not a lot of us come out and say, hey, I'm a single parent, but there are some of us that do come out, and the one consensus that we come to is there's no support. We're really doing this on our own financially, and we make too much money because we can't be on disability, so we can't get support from the system. And Social Security will not give me my disability unless I lose my job or I quit my job. So it's just an unfortunate circumstance that I'm in and that many others are in. I do have a great support system with my family, and they help me every way that they can, especially like non-financially. And I'm so happy to have that, but it's still a struggle. It is still a struggle. And it's a really tough road to be on. The one thing that keeps me going, besides my children, because my children really do encourage me to keep going, is I love being alive. I love living. I have a strong will to live. I'm very stubborn, and I don't want to go anywhere. This is fun for me. I'm not trying to call out. I'm trying to stay in. So that's the thing that keeps me going, especially being so stubborn. Like, I'm not going anywhere. You're not going to tell me I'm going to die. No, I'm going to find a way around. You tell me to do something, I'm not going to do that. So, yeah, I really love living, and that's really what keeps me going every day. What I would tell somebody if you're first diagnosed with cancer: be an advocate for yourself. Know that it's going to be okay. The cancer terrain has grown since the last time you probably knew somebody with cancer. There's so many new treatment options that have developed in the past 10 years. You probably have a lot more options, and make sure to go get a specialist in your cancer.